Evelyn rocked gently on her old wooden porch, the late afternoon sun spilling golden light across her yard, painting everything in a warm, soft glow that made the air feel alive with quiet magic. She loved these moments, when the world seemed to pause, and the only sounds were the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze and the distant hum of life beyond the trees. Her grandson, Max, sat beside her in his small chair, his feet dangling and swinging lazily, yet his eyes were alert, full of thought far beyond his 10 years. He had always been a quiet child, observant, noticing details others missed, and today he seemed unusually pensive. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, letting the silence stretch comfortably, like a shared secret, until Max broke it with a soft, almost hesitant voice, "Grandma, do you ever feel like life changes too fast?" Evelyn paused, her hand frozen mid-sip of her tea, the words catching her off guard. She had felt that herself so many times, life moving like a river, carrying moments, people, and chances past before she could hold on to them. "Sometimes, yes, sweetheart," she said, her voice gentle, "but change isn't always bad." Max nodded slowly, as if weighing her words carefully, his gaze drifting toward the horizon where the sun kissed the treetops in pink and orange streaks. The seriousness in his eyes made Evelyn's heart tighten in a way she didn't expect. Something deeper than a child's curiosity stirred within him, a question that felt older than his age, as if he were already searching for truths about the world that most adults only realized too late. Then, almost as if compelled by some inner thought, Max asked again, more directly this time, "Grandma, do you think people really find love when they're older?" The question made Evelyn's chest tighten, a mixture of surprise and a quiet ache sweeping through her. She had seen love bloom, fade, and bloom again in her life, yet the idea of love in later years still carried both hope and a certain fragility, the kind that made her catch her breath. She looked at Max, whose small face was earnest, his eyes wide and sincere, and she realized that his question was not just innocent curiosity, it was a reflection of something profound, something that mirrored the longings and uncertainties she herself had felt silently for years. Evelyn tried to gather her thoughts, unsure how to answer a question that seemed so simple yet carried so much weight. The sun shifted, shadows stretching across the porch boards, and the warm glow of evening settled around them, making the moment feel both timeless and fleeting, like a pause in the flow of life where anything might be possible. She wanted to tell Max everything about love, its joys, its heartbreaks, its quiet, persistent hope, but the words seemed too large for the gentle afternoon, too heavy for a child's ears, yet too urgent to remain unsaid. Evelyn took a slow breath, letting the breeze wash over her, listening to the faint sounds of distant birds calling to one another as if they too were part of this fragile, golden moment. Max shifted slightly, leaning forward, and Evelyn felt a strange, tender connection, not just as his grandmother, but as someone who had lived long enough to know that life's most meaningful moments often arrive quietly, without warning, in the simple questions of those we love. The air was filled with an unspoken anticipation, as though the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for her answer, for the wisdom that only experience could provide. Evelyn realized that this moment, this single question, could change the rhythm of their afternoon, could alter the way they would remember this day forever. Max's small hand rested lightly on the arm of his chair, and he looked up at her with a mixture of hope and uncertainty that pierced her heart. She knew that the right words could plant seeds of courage, of understanding, and perhaps even of hope that would grow within him long after this day had ended. Her mind wandered for a brief second to her own past, to love lost and found, to the moments when her heart had been brave enough, or not brave enough, to reach for what it desired. She remembered the butterflies of first love, the sting of heartbreak, the quiet comfort of companionship, and the subtle, often unnoticed ways love had shaped her life, guiding her through joy and sorrow alike. Evelyn realized that, in many ways, Max's question was a reminder that life never truly stops offering chances, that love can appear when least expected, that hearts, no matter the age, still have room to hope. She smiled softly, a wistful, tender smile that carried the weight of memories and the promise of the moment ahead. The breeze picked up slightly, rustling the leaves and bringing with it the faint scent of blooming roses from the garden, a fragrance that seemed to echo the delicate balance of hope and uncertainty hanging in the air. Max's gaze didn't waver. He seemed to sense, even in his young way, that this was a pivotal moment, a quiet turning point in the rhythm of their afternoon. Evelyn's heart fluttered as she realized that sometimes, questions from those we care about can open doors we thought were closed, can shine light into corners of our hearts we had long ignored, can remind us of the courage we thought we had lost. She felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a gentle stirring of emotion, a recognition that this simple porch, this simple conversation, was quietly extraordinary. She was acutely aware of the soft creak of the rocking chair beneath her, the whisper of the wind in the trees, the comforting presence of Max beside her, and the deep, unspoken truth that love, quiet, patient, and enduring, remained possible, even when it seemed far away. And in that suspended moment, Evelyn understood that the answer she gave would matter far beyond the words themselves. It would shape the way Max viewed the world, the way he felt about courage, hope, and the kind of love that waits quietly but always finds a way. She drew in another slow breath, savoring the fragile beauty of the evening, the golden light on his small, serious face, the quiet pulse of life around them, and felt a surprising sense of anticipation, a gentle thrill at the unfolding of what might come next. And just as she opened her mouth, her mind searching for the perfect words that could honor both truth and innocence, Max spoke again, softly, almost as if testing the air, and Evelyn felt her heart catch in her throat, knowing that this afternoon, this simple question, had already begun to change the rhythm of their lives in ways neither of them could yet fully understand. Evelyn set her tea down carefully, feeling the weight of Max's question linger in the warm afternoon air, and looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and gentle concern, realizing that even at 10 years old, he was searching for answers that many adults struggle to find, and she knew she had to answer with honesty yet with care, so she began slowly, her voice soft. Yes, Max, people can always find love, no matter how old they are. It's never too late to open your heart. And she watched as his small face lit up with a flicker of understanding, a glimmer that told her he grasped the depth of what she was saying, even if the full meaning was beyond him, and she felt a surge of warmth at the thought that he was learning about the world's possibilities, about courage and hope, through a conversation on her quiet porch while the late sun poured gold and pink across the sky, casting shadows that stretched lazily over the boards and the garden, where roses were just beginning to bloom, carrying their subtle fragrance through the air, filling the space with a gentle reminder that life itself had a rhythm of growth and beauty that never truly ended. And Max, sensing the sincerity in her voice, tilted his head, his brows knitting together in that thoughtful way that always made Evelyn smile because he looked so much like his father did at that age, and he asked, "But what if someone misses it? What if they think it's too late?" And the words struck her with an unexpected poignancy because she remembered all too well the moments she had once let slip by, the chances she had hesitated to take, the quiet longing she had buried deep inside her heart for years while she watched life continue around her. And she realized that Max's question was not just about others, but in some subtle way, it mirrored her own hidden fears and hopes, and she felt a gentle ache in her chest at the thought that she had denied herself love for so long. Yet now, in this ordinary yet extraordinary moment, she felt a spark of possibility flicker, fragile and bright, like a candle in a soft evening breeze, and she breathed slowly, letting her memories mix with the present, thinking of the first love she had known, the heartbreak that had followed, and the quiet, comforting companionship she had found in years afterward, and she recognized that her story, though full of twists and missed chances, still held lessons about courage, about hope, about the quiet strength it takes to open oneself to love again. And she looked at Max with tender eyes and said, almost to herself, "Sometimes we're afraid to take chances, Max. We think time has passed us by, but love doesn't follow schedules. It's quiet, patient, it waits for the right moment." Max listened intently, his small hands folded on his lap, his gaze fixed on her as though she were revealing some ancient secret of the world, and he whispered, "So, you still believe in it?" And Evelyn's heart swelled at the innocence and the trust in his voice, because she wanted to say yes with full certainty, though a small pang of sadness reminded her of the love she had lost, of the chances she had let slip quietly by, and yet she nodded slowly, letting a small, hopeful smile reach her eyes, feeling the sun's warmth on her face, the wind teasing strands of her gray hair, the rustle of leaves providing a comforting soundtrack. as if nature itself supported the delicate courage she felt stirring inside her. And she noticed that Max's eyes reflected more than curiosity. They held a deep yearning, a quiet awareness that sometimes, understanding something as simple and complex as love requires both patience and bravery. And she felt a sudden tenderness for him, realizing that his question had opened a door in her own heart that she had long kept closed, a door she hadn't realized she wanted to open until now. And she marveled at how a child could sometimes see more clearly than adults. How his simple words had touched a chord she thought she had silenced long ago. And as the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with strokes of lavender and amber, Evelyn felt an unexpected thrill of anticipation mixed with a quiet apprehension, wondering where this conversation might lead. What truths might be revealed in the moments ahead, and she leaned back in her chair slightly, the wood creaking softly under her weight, feeling the gentle hum of life around her, the distant sound of a lawn-mower, the faint laughter of children playing far down the street, the whisper of wind brushing the flowers. And she knew that in this ordinary afternoon lay an extraordinary lesson about hope, about courage, about believing that life could still surprise her, even at this age. And Max shifted slightly, looking up with wide eyes and a tentative smile, and Evelyn realized that in that brief, suspended moment, they were both learning something profound, that love, in its quiet, patient way, could arrive when hearts were ready, that even the smallest question could carry a universe of meaning. And that sometimes the most ordinary places, the porch, the garden, the fading sunlight, could become the stage for life's most extraordinary revelations. And as she gathered her thoughts to speak again, Max's small voice broke the fragile spell, asking in a whisper, "Grandma, I think my heart wants someone to feel like yours," and Evelyn's breath caught, a shiver running down her spine. Because the words were innocent yet filled with an unexpected weight, as if the child's mind had glimpsed something she herself had been afraid to acknowledge, and she felt a rush of emotion, a combination of love, surprise, and a tender awakening that made her realize this afternoon, this quiet conversation, had already begun to shift the rhythm of her heart, the pace of her thoughts, and perhaps even the path of her life. And the shadows lengthened across the porch boards. The breeze whispered through the oak leaves, the roses released their subtle scent, and Evelyn understood, with a clarity that was at once startling and comforting, that this single, gentle moment, Max's curiosity, his honesty, his unexpected insight, could hold within it the power to change not just the day, but the very way she felt about herself, about life, and about the quiet, patient possibility of love yet to come. Evelyn let out a quiet sigh, brushing a loose strand of gray hair behind her ear as she looked out at the garden where roses swayed gently in the late afternoon breeze, the air filled with their soft fragrance, and she felt a sudden, profound awareness that life had a rhythm she sometimes forgot, a quiet pulse that connected moments, people, and emotions in ways she could not always predict. And she turned back to Max, who was watching her with wide, expectant eyes, leaning forward slightly, eager for more, and she realized that this small, thoughtful child had a wisdom in his innocence, a clarity in his curiosity, that often surpassed her own understanding of the world. And she spoke slowly, choosing words with care. "Max, love isn't always easy. Sometimes it's scary. Sometimes it hurts, and you don't always know if you're ready for it, but it's also what makes life beautiful." And she watched his eyes widen slightly, reflecting a mixture of awe and comprehension, a spark of understanding that made her heart swell, and she felt a tender joy that even at his young age, he was beginning to grasp the depths of human emotion, the complexity of heart and soul, the truth that courage and hope often walk hand in hand with vulnerability. And Max, shifting in his small chair, nodded slowly, then whispered, "I think it's like wanting something really badly but not being sure if you should try for it." And Evelyn's chest tightened at his words because she recognized in them the very essence of what she had felt for decades, the fear of taking chances, the hesitation born of past heartbreaks, the longing for connection tempered by the cautious wisdom of age. And she smiled gently, a wistful, tender expression that carried both nostalgia and renewed hope. And she said, "Exactly, Max. The bravest thing you can do is take the chance anyway, even if your heart trembles, even if you're not certain, because sometimes the reward is worth every fear, every doubt, every moment of hesitation." And Max absorbed her words silently, his small hands resting on his knees, his gaze distant for a moment as if imagining the worlds that lay ahead. And Evelyn realized that in speaking to him, she was also speaking to herself, reminding herself of lessons long forgotten. Lessons about daring to feel, about allowing oneself to hope, about letting the heart remain open even when it has been hurt before, and a strange warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of longing and courage, and she felt the quiet thrill of possibility stirring inside her, like a gentle ember glowing to life in the soft evening light. And Max tilted his head, curiosity mingled with understanding, and asked, "Grandma, maybe you should give yourself that chance," and Evelyn's heart caught at the innocence yet insight in his words, because she recognized the truth in them immediately, the quiet push she had needed, the subtle reminder that life had not ended for her, that love could still appear in gentle, unexpected ways, that the heart could still awaken, even after years of caution, even after seasons of loss, even after decades of silence. And she looked at him with tears welling in her eyes, but a smile that radiated warmth, hope, and a tender vulnerability, and she realized that sometimes, children can see things adults cannot, can reflect back to us our own hidden desires, can illuminate paths we had been too afraid to take. And as the sun continued its slow descent, casting long, soft shadows across the porch and garden, she felt a quiet exhilaration, a sense that the world was holding its breath alongside her, waiting for the next moment, the next word, the next decision that might shape her days ahead. And she drew a deep breath, feeling the subtle rustle of leaves, the faint hum of distant life, the gentle perfume of flowers, and recognized that the ordinary afternoon had transformed into a profound encounter, a delicate awakening, a gentle reckoning of heart and soul. And Max, sensing the depth of her emotion, leaned closer slightly, his small shoulder brushing against hers, and Evelyn felt the warmth of connection, not just to him, but to the universe itself, to life's enduring potential, to love's patient persistence. And she understood, more clearly than she had in years, that taking a chance on love was not reckless but essential, that opening her heart again did not diminish her strength but amplified it, that hope and courage were gifts to be embraced, not feared. And as the sky deepened into shades of lavender and rose, she felt a subtle, thrilling awareness that something was shifting inside her, that the quiet ache she had carried for so long was being replaced by a delicate, trembling excitement, a readiness to experience the world and its possibilities with an openness she had thought lost. And Max, oblivious to the emotional complexity of his insight, simply smiled, a small, knowing smile that mirrored her own dawning understanding. And Evelyn realized that this porch, this garden, this simple afternoon, had become a crucible for transformation, a place where words and feelings mingled to create something profound, where the lessons of youth and age intertwined, where the past's quiet regrets met the present's gentle hope. And she felt herself leaning into that hope, letting it fill her chest, letting it guide her thoughts toward what might come, toward the chance to reconnect with the world of emotion she had long set aside, toward the possibility of love's quiet return. And as Max rested his head lightly against her shoulder, the gentle hum of the evening surrounding them, the world seemed to pause in perfect symmetry, a moment suspended between past and future, fear and courage, longing and fulfillment. And Evelyn knew, in the deepest part of herself, that this conversation, this simple, heartfelt exchange, had opened the door to something she had not dared to hope for in years, something tender, vital, and alive. And she felt a shiver of anticipation, the soft thrill of life's unexpected gifts, the delicate promise that love could indeed find her again. And she squeezed Max's hand gently, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they shared, the lessons they were teaching each other, and the quiet, profound truth that sometimes, the smallest voices carry the most important wisdom. And as the last light of day filtered through the trees, illuminating their faces in golden glow, Evelyn realized that her heart had already begun to awaken, that hope had returned, that courage had been quietly renewed, and that the ordinary afternoon on the porch with her grandson had become a turning point, a tender, life-affirming moment that would ripple through her days to come, shaping not only her outlook on love and life but also the way she saw herself and the future with a newfound openness, ready to embrace whatever came next with grace, warmth, and the quiet, unshakable courage that only the heart, once touched, can inspire. As the sky deepened into shades of lavender and burnt orange, Evelyn felt a strange lightness settle over her chest, a gentle warmth that seemed to flow from the quiet bond she shared with Max. And she realized that this ordinary porch, this simple afternoon, had become something extraordinary, a place where hearts could speak without words and emotions could bloom in ways both tender and profound, and she watched Max yawn, leaning slightly against her shoulder, his small hand brushing lightly against hers, and she marveled at how such a young child could carry so much insight, how his innocent curiosity and heartfelt questions had stirred something in her she thought had long been dormant, the quiet hope. The soft courage, the gentle longing that had whispered through her life like a faint echo, and she understood, with a clarity that was both startling and comforting, that moments like these were rare, precious, and capable of shifting the rhythm of days and years, of awakening hearts to possibilities long forgotten, and she smiled, a soft, tender smile, feeling the warmth of the fading sun on her face, the subtle breeze rustling the oak leaves above, the faint scent of roses drifting from the garden below, and she realized that life, even in its ordinary patterns, had a way of offering profound gifts to those willing to notice, to feel, to listen, and she looked down at Max, whose eyes, though heavy with the approach of evening, were bright with a quiet understanding, and she whispered, "Sometimes it takes a child to remind us of what we've been too afraid to see," and Max, in his innocent way, replied simply, "I just want you to be happy, Grandma," and Evelyn felt her throat tighten as a lump of emotion rose unbidden, a mixture of love, gratitude, and a long-dormant hope that perhaps the universe still had plans to surprise her, to offer gentle, unexpected joys that could reach her heart even now, and she realized that the lessons Max had unknowingly taught her were far greater than she could have imagined, about courage, about openness, about allowing oneself to hope again even after years of hesitation, and she felt a stirring, delicate yet undeniable, that maybe this was the beginning of a new chapter in her life, a chapter where she could embrace connection, warmth, and perhaps even the quiet, patient return of love. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the clouds in streaks of pink and gold, Evelyn drew a slow breath, feeling the gentle hum of the evening, the faint sounds of distant birds settling in their nests, the whisper of wind brushing through flowers, and the comforting presence of Max at her side, and she realized that happiness, like love, often arrived in the smallest moments, the softest words, the quietest touches, and she felt a deep, satisfying sense of peace, a sense that life's tender surprises were not only possible but waiting for those who dared to let their hearts remain open, and she gently squeezed Max's hand, feeling the warmth of his small fingers in hers, and she reflected on the journey that had led her here, the years of longing, of patience, of silent hope, and she felt a gentle thrill at the thought that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to live fully again, to embrace whatever joy, love, or connection might come her way, and she thought of the man she had loved long ago, the memories that had lingered quietly, the lessons she had learned from heartbreak and resilience, and she understood that her heart was capable of both remembering and moving forward, of cherishing the past while still opening itself to new beginnings, and she looked out at the horizon, where the last light of day kissed the trees in soft golden pink, and she realized that life's beauty often lay in its quiet unpredictability, in the small, tender moments that arrive without fanfare, carrying within them the power to heal, to inspire, to awaken hope and love. And she felt a soft tear slide down her cheek, unbidden but welcome, as a symbol of the emotions flowing freely now, unrestrained by fear, doubt, or past hesitation, and she felt an overwhelming gratitude for Max, whose simple, heartfelt words had become a mirror reflecting her own desires, her own willingness to feel, to hope, to embrace life fully, and she whispered, almost to herself, "I think I can be happy," and Max rested his head lightly against her shoulder, eyes closing with trust and comfort, and Evelyn felt the profound truth of the moment settle into her bones, the quiet certainty that love, in its gentle, patient way, could arrive when hearts were ready, that happiness could bloom even after years of waiting, and that the courage to open oneself to possibility was the most vital step of all. And as the sky darkened, stars beginning to twinkle faintly above, she leaned back in her chair, feeling the gentle sway, the familiar creak of wood beneath her, the soft embrace of the evening, and she realized that this ordinary porch had become a sanctuary, a place where love, hope, and courage intertwined seamlessly with the rhythms of life, where she could reflect, breathe, and quietly dream of what the future might hold. And she understood that the conversation with Max, the simple words exchanged, had already changed her, had shifted her perspective, had awakened in her a readiness to embrace connection, tenderness, and perhaps the quiet, enduring magic of love yet to come, and she felt a gentle joy, a warmth that radiated through her chest, knowing that moments like these, soft, unassuming, full of heartfelt truth, were the ones that could transform ordinary days into memories she would carry forever. And as Max drifted into sleep against her side, Evelyn felt a serene, glowing hope, a certainty that the world still had beauty to offer, that love could find her when she least expected it, and that her heart, patient and resilient, was ready to accept it. And she sat there, in the soft twilight, holding his small hand, feeling the rhythm of life around them, and knew with quiet conviction that this day, this evening, had changed everything, that the gentle wisdom of a child had awakened her heart, that happiness and love were not only possible but waiting patiently, quietly, for her to reach for them, and she embraced the promise of tomorrow with a heart open, tender, and full of hopeful anticipation.